Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription. I'm your host, Matthew Holman, and this is the podcast where we help you figure out everything related to D2C subscriptions. Today is a topic that matters the most to subscriptions outside of the offer, and that is email and SMS communications. But more than just talking about, say, onboarding or billing reminders, we're going to be covering the entire spectrum: transactional emails, campaigns versus flows, whether you should opt subscribers out of campaigns or not, all kinds of stuff. I'm excited to dive in. But now, first, before we get into email, I actually want to launch this conversation with a little bit of a thought exercise over a post that a good friend of mine, Brian Stark, had on LinkedIn recently, where he basically asked the audience, which cohort do you think has a higher lifetime value? Is that one-time purchasers? Is that subscribers? Or is that one-time purchasers that then subscribe? The subscription cohort, meaning they took the subscription offer initially. What's really interesting here to look at is it's really easy to see that the one-time purchasers are typically going to have the lowest lifetime value compared to anybody on a subscription. Just generally speaking, subscribers purchase more regularly, more frequently. They just have more purchases because of the recurring nature of subscriptions. Their LTV is going to be higher. But what's interesting is when we look at the two cohorts between first-time subscribers versus second-time subscribers. Essentially, they bought a one-time purchase once or twice and then subscribe. A lot of the brands that I've looked at, and what Brian was calling out as well, is that the OTP to sub segment is actually often a higher lifetime value group than the first-time subscription group. But one of the things that's kind of tricky and fun, and why e-com is often just a house of mirrors and smoke and not really sure what's really going on with brands, is it's really easy to point out that is the higher LTV group. And Brian, thankfully, is very thoughtful about this, of how he's presenting this. So anything I'm going to say here is not revolutionary. It's actually a lot of what Brian was saying as well. The idea being, what do you do with that? Because from a simple thought exercise, I'd like to just lay out some very simple numbers to you. So again, just going with 100 purchasers a month. Okay, so you get 100 people to come to your site every month. Now, out of that 100, what is your repurchase rate? From your retention side, getting people to come back and buy again. Let's be really aggressive with that and let's say that's 50%. So you have a really, really strong retention. You get 100 new purchases, you're going to get 50 people to come back. And let's say your ability to convert people that come back to a subscription is also really, really good. And you can get half of those 50 to come back on a subscription. So out of 100 new purchases each month, you know that you're going to get that 100 purchases, and then you're going to get 25 people, that's 50% of 50% of 100, to come back on a subscription. Those are really good conversion rates, by the way, those numbers. Those are aspirational. But the point of what I'm making here is, out of that 100 purchasers, you're essentially converting 25% to subscriptions. Now, if we were to throw out the OTP to sub conversion rate and just think about how many people that come to the site each month we can get onto a subscription, 25% from a conversion standpoint is okay. But often a lot of the brands that we work with and the subscription-focused brands are looking at 40 to 60%, right? 40 being kind of like you're doing okay, 60% you're doing really well. If you're almost a 100% subscription brand, then you're going to be the 80s or 90%, right? That's the only offer you have on the table. So the idea here is you don't necessarily build a system around one-time purchase to subscription conversions. Instead, you build a system that allows you to convert first-time buyers to subscriptions, because you could do that without too much effort at a 40% rate, maybe even a 50% rate. So out of those 100 purchasers, I could get 40 to 50 onto a subscription immediately, and they have higher LTV than everybody else that comes in. Now, out of those remaining people that have tried the one-time purchase product, I can now upsell them into subscriptions and know that anyone I get onto a subscription that's tried the product is typically going to have a higher lifetime value than the rest of the business. But from a volume standpoint, a revenue standpoint, and ultimately a contribution margin, what is profitability for the business? We're going to make more hay by optimizing that upfront purchase to the subscription. But what's the mechanism that makes the OTP to subscriber conversion work? It's email and SMS. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So on past episodes, I've talked a ton about onboarding series. I highly suggest you look through some of our past doses on this, even on our newsletters as well. We dive into this and talking about the importance of onboarding people, of educating, providing value, setting the table, showing them the subscription milestones that are available to them, answering FAQs, making sure that they're going to have a great first product experience. That is a big lift in and of itself. That is definitely worth investing a lot of your time in. But I've talked about that a ton in the past, so I'd like to point you to past content on that. And then the other piece that we talk about a ton as well is the upcoming billing reminder, right? This is often just transactional. People kind of like just leave it alone. Sometimes you maybe invest a little bit of time into it. That is another place that you want to spend a ton of time designing and optimizing your copy, how you're mentioning the subscription, where you're embedding the portal link, not mentioning that they can cancel, right? We don't want to suggest that they should go cancel because that upcoming billing reminder is going to be probably one of your highest, what feels like the cause of churn. A lot of brands feel like it's the cause of churn. You're really just reminding someone they have a subscription and then they're remembering that they should go cancel, right? If they don't remember and they still want to cancel, they'll see the charge, then they're going to go cancel. So the upcoming billing reminder is another really, really big opportunity to invest. That's great messaging real estate. It's an important touch point. You can also upsell and cross-sell out of that email to enhance or enlarge the amount of purchases that subscriber is making. So those are the two big places we often think about with email. But when we're looking at accounts and when we're working with brands, we see so many other touch points that are missed. And when we start thinking about email, I actually want to bring up something that will help guide this discussion. Or really, it's more of me talking to you, so it's not so much of a discussion. But the idea is what is the intent behind your email and SMS communication? Because a lot of brands are scared about communicating with subscribers. They actually often will opt them out of campaigns and other motions. And I think that works okay when you're smaller, but as you start to grow and scale and your subscriber base becomes 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 or more in size, then you really should be thinking about being more intentional with subscribers. And so this is kind of what I get at. When you have a large enough audience, it makes sense to treat subscribers as their separate channel or segment. And so when we're thinking about email, when we're thinking about the difference between like campaigns is where I'm starting. Flows and everything else we're getting into is a little bit easier to digest and understand. When we're thinking about campaigns, say there's a brand here in Utah, they're running an anniversary sale coming up soon, BFCM, or if you're a brand that's like closely tied to say like Mother's Day or Father's Day or other holidays that say typically spark stronger sales for your store, your brand, you have to ask yourself, am I emailing or sending SMS campaigns to subscribers? And again, a lot of brands are saying no to this because it causes churn, but the question needs to be is about how you can be more intentional with that. And what I mean is just think about this from the mind of a subscriber. So say I subscribe to your product for at 20% off and I see either ads or other things. Maybe I get opted out of some of your email sends, but I hear about a 30, 40% offer on the site, right? I'm going to go cancel my subscription. I'm going to grab that extra special deal. Maybe I'll do a bulk buy because I'll know I'm going to buy 3-4 months in advance, right? Now, as a brand, you really don't like that, right? Because you're losing locked in revenue. It causes churn. Yes, you like the purchase, but they're also purchasing at a worse discount. Now, one of your first tactics here, just I'll throw this in there, is actually to treat your cancellation flow. Give it this option that, hey, we actually have a lifetime discount available for you as a subscriber. So if say the site-wide it's 40% off, say, hey, instead of canceling, lock in 30% off lifetime, or you can get 40% off your next order, don't cancel. So there are some touch points you can do there. But the other part is actually to think about how can I be intentional from a campaign standpoint? What special offer do I have for subscribers? If I'm getting 40% off to my cold audience, can I be a little bit more creative with what I'm offering subscribers? Is there a bundle option here? Is there a buy more, save more option here? Is there a gift with purchase option that I can use here? Think of an offer that's going to work for subscribers. That should be the most compelling one. Those are the people, that's your warmest audience. So what's the best offer you can come up for them? Even if it's something as simple as like, hey, we're running a site-wide special, but for you as a subscriber, if you add any of these 3 products to your subscription, we'll give you 50% off that item, as opposed to say like the site-wide 20, 30, 40% off kind of thing. Again, it's coming up being a little creative and being intentional around a campaign strategy to subscribers that's going to allow you to unlock more revenue, make a better experience for them, and reduce the amount of churn you get when you sometimes have those campaign sends. All right, the next thing I want to talk about are transactional emails. If you're using Shopify, right, you usually can't edit too many of these unless you're on Shopify Plus. I get that. But you also have a subscription platform that is sending out transactional emails for you, right? So we're talking about confirming the subscription. We're talking about confirming a cancellation. We're talking about confirming that a product is out of stock, failed payment, right? Confirming maybe another action like an upsell or something like that. Those are a lot of transactional emails that are happening. I'm not saying you need to go in and make every single one this amazing work of art, but what I am saying is to start thinking about a couple of these touch points of where you can invest in them. For example, a subscription confirmation email is kind of like a last hurrah for somebody that's canceled, to let them know that you see them, you hear them, and hey, when you're ready to come back, we've got a great offer for you, right? So they passed on the offer and the cancellation flow inside the subscriber portal, but hey, here's something inside the email. Yes, we're going to email you in the future with additional offers to try to come back, but here's something we want to let you know. You can come back whenever you want. We've got a great special for when you come back. Here's a button to go reactivate, things like that, right? That's one example of that. Another one we see is like inventory that's out of stock, right? This is often a transactional email. And depending on your inventory policy, you can suggest alternative products. You can suggest that people pause their subscription, that they opt in for additional messaging for when a product is back. There's a whole bunch of different strategies you can use around that point. Another transactional email that I see get often kind of like left out there as well are shipping confirmations. So there's actually a really, really common tactic. If you're familiar with tools like Malomo, Wonderment, Aftership, that's where you're actually, when you embed like tracking information in the email, instead of say you ship by FedEx, instead of they click a tracking link and they go to FedEx's homepage, they're going to a page that's hosted by one of these apps. It's hosted on your website. It has the tracking information embedded, but there's actually also real estate below there that you can use to embed like educational emails. You can do upsells and cross-sells from that page as well. So that's additional real estate you can use. But even within the confirmation email, the shipping, tracking, and confirmation email itself, order confirmation emails that have tracking information are the number one opened email, right? Like they're open at a ridiculously high rate. That's one that you can invest a little bit of branding in, telling your story, maybe talking about upcoming products or specials or deals that you have in there. You can invest some more time in that, especially for subscribers that have chosen to like invest some kind of commitment with you. Okay, for upsell, cross-sell flows, like I mentioned that you should be using your billing reminder email for this, but I do think that if you start to look at your subscriber like life cycle, right? Month 1 and month 2 are typically like really high churn time frames. But as we get into months 3, 4, 5, for most brands, it just depends a little bit which month that is, people start to settle in a little bit, right? This is a really good opportunity to start building in some flows, and you should be testing this about which products you should be introducing people to next. If you have a massive catalog, this can be really complex, but the idea is to say if you have a hero product, anybody on that hero product, what is the next best product to introduce them to? What's like the most commonly bought together? So building in some flows that are happening, I suggest you can try testing them after the second renewal. I do think embedding them into some kind of billing reminder, say for orders 3 or 4, can work. But you can also test with some flows or periodic campaigns to get people to opt into these. Now, the flow part is about making sure you're not risking subscriber cancellation. The campaign part kind of comes back to what I was saying towards the beginning when we're thinking about being intentional with our offers. We're sending something special to subscribers that they're going to want to hear about. So when we're getting into the upsell, cross-sell piece, we're about introducing additional products that go well together, that other people really like, that are popular, or potentially upselling people into a bigger commitment, right? So if somebody's used the product, I suggest doing upsells into quarterly or semi-annual prepaid subscriptions before the second renewal. they've used the product, they've liked the product. They're either going to cancel at that point because of the billing reminder, they're not really using it, or they're going to ignore the offer because they're not quite there yet, or they're going to love this idea. Hey, this product has become part of my routine, makes sense. And that upsell offer into a prepaid could involve an extra discount or a free gift or some kind of bundle option for them as well. Okay, another thing that we love doing is actually when we think about, say, like win-back emails or some of these other flows that we're building out, we actually like to periodically do campaigns about the same thing. So for win-backs, it's kind of funny. Every time we launch a new win-back flow, we also send a win-back campaign at the same time because the brand we've been working with hasn't really been doing it to that point. That is something you should think about doing periodically, especially when we're coming back to thinking about sales that are happening or specials that are happening. If you're already doing something that's like, hey, buy more, save more, or hey, it's our anniversary sale, get 50% off, like that can be an offer that you're doing for win-backs as well. In fact, it doesn't always have to be the same product. You can potentially offer a bundle or your starter kit to past subscribers with a really aggressive discount to get them to come back. And so periodically, it makes sense to do campaigns like that. I do think over time, the win-back, like the ability to win back subscribers does decrease drastically over time, but it's not much work to put together a campaign or two periodically to make that happen. Okay, the final thing I want to wrap up with is talking about SMS. So when we've talked about campaigns in the past and flows, you do have the option to leverage SMS to make a lot of those happen. I highly recommend if it's something, especially when we're looking at targeting existing subscribers, SMS can be really, really powerful. The other piece that SMS is kind of changing the game, it has been for a while, and I'm excited to see this continue to happen, is around transactional messaging. And so essentially this is like, hey, your upcoming billing reminder is actually done through SMS. And so a couple of the platforms are doing this really, really well. You can still use, say, like Klaviyo or Attentive with some platform triggers. I do really like how Recharge and Skio are doing this. The idea being you can have more control over what you offer to somebody. And so some of the opportunities here, and my advice is, I don't like making it easy to cancel an SMS. And while I do preach frequency and control all the time, it's also kind of like, I don't want to be too obvious. So if somebody wants to cancel, I want to push them to the portal and make them go through a cancellation flow. I've invested tons of time in content and copy and offers to make that cancellation flow perform well. So one-click cancellation doesn't really jive for me with that strategy. However, the ability to adjust frequency, change their schedule, delay, add products, remove products, all of that can be done really, really easy and conveniently from the power of your phone. And then if somebody does want to cancel, it's a one-click link. They can get that portal login code, and then they can go on their way if that's what they need. So you should look at getting an SMS. I especially recommend it for anybody that's got any kind of frequency issue. So if you've got a product that sometimes is a little tricky, people maybe have to spend a little bit of time getting it right for how much they need, putting that into SMS is actually really, really convenient. People really, really like it, and it unlocks a lot of value. I've talked about this in the past, but customers that adjust their frequency 3 times have a 200% higher LTV than people that don't, right? That's data that we've seen from thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of subscriptions. Higher LTV results from more frequency control and product control as well. So that's it for this week's dose. To wrap up, I just want you to keep in mind to be really, really intentional around your email and SMS campaign strategy for subscribers. You've probably been opting them out of a lot of stuff to this point. I suggest opting them in with special offers or around their own segment so that you can drive more value from them, deliver more value to your subscribers. Look at some of your other touch points around transactional messaging when you can introduce flows. There's a lot of work to be done here. But again, when we look at retention marketing in general, brands are driving 20, 30, 40, 50% of their revenue from email marketing. Subscriptions are often looked at as set and forget. That's money I've got coming in. I'm just trying to figure out how to keep people from canceling. When you're more intentional around your email and SMS strategy for subscribers, you will make more money. Your subscribers will become more profitable. All right. That's it for this week's dose. Stay tuned next week for another episode of Subscription Prescription. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.